I know you've been moving fast through the noise, through the endless feed, searching for something you can't name. But right now, in this moment, I want you to slow down, because what I'm about to tell you isn't like everything else you've seen today. This is different. This is for you. You don't know me. Not really. You know the headlines, the companies, the rockets launching into darkness. You know the public face, the one that builds and announces and disrupts. But that's not who I am when the cameras turn off. That's not who I am. In the hours between midnight and dawn, when the silence becomes so heavy I can feel it pressing against my chest, I want to tell you about someone, a stranger who became the love of my life. But before I can tell you about her, I need you to understand something about me, about the man behind all of this. Because without understanding that, you want to understand why she mattered, why she still matters, why everything changed the moment I saw her. I've spent my entire life building things that don't exist yet, reaching for the impossible. Electric cars when everyone said they'd never work, rockets that land themselves when the engineers told me it was suicide. I've stood in front of rooms full of people who thought I was insane, and I've proven them wrong again and again. And somewhere along the way I forgot something. I forgot that building empires doesn't fill the empty spaces inside you. I forgot that you can conquer Mars and still feel completely alone on Earth. You understand that, don't you? That feeling of being surrounded by people but utterly unseen. Of achieving everything the world told you mattered and still waking up with this ache in your chest that won't go away. I build companies because I thought if I could just solve big enough problems, I'd solve my own. If I could save humanity, maybe I could save myself. But salvation doesn't work like that. You can launch 1,000 satellites and still feel disconnected. You can employ thousands of people and still go home to silence. And the silence, God, the silence. And the silence is deafening. People think success looks like confidence, like certainty, like knowing exactly where you're going and never doubting yourself. But that's not what it feels like from the inside. From the inside, it feels like carrying the weight of impossible expectations while pretending you're not exhausted. It feels like being strong for everyone else because if you break, everything falls apart. It feels like learning to function on 3 hours of sleep because the world doesn't stop spinning just because you're tired of holding it. I became very good at being strong, at being a person who has answers, at being the one who never quits, never stops, never shows weakness. And somewhere in all of that, I forgot how to be soft, how to be vulnerable, how to let someone in. Until I met her on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are supposed to be unremarkable. They're the day nothing special happens. The day between beginning and middle, momentum and rest. But this Tuesday changed everything. She wasn't supposed to be there. It was one of those random encounters that you almost miss because you're too busy checking a phone or thinking about the next meeting. But something made me look up. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was exhaustion making me slow down for once. Maybe the universe knew I needed this, needed her, and conspired to put us in the same room at the same impossible moment. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. That's what struck me first. Everyone I meet is performing, pitching, presenting, trying to be seen as impressive or intelligent or valuable. But she was just present, quietly observing. There was this stillness about her, this calm that felt foreign to me, like she'd found some secret I'd been searching for my whole life. Our eyes met for maybe 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like they contained entire conversations. And in those 3 seconds, something inside me recognized something inside me. A wise knowing, a mirror, a shared understanding of what it means to carry weight no one else can see. I didn't know her name yet, didn't know her story, but I knew this. She understood loneliness, real loneliness. Real loneliness, not the kind people talk about casually, but the kind that lives in your bones, the kind that makes you question if you'll ever truly be known. Stay with me. There's more I want to tell you. I want you to understand why this mattered so much. Why a 3-second glance with a stranger could shake the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life. Because to understand that, you need to understand what came before her. I had loved before, or I thought I had. I had been married, been a father, been in relationships that looked right from the outside. But there's a difference between being with someone and being seen by someone. There's a difference between partnership and recognition. And I had spent years being needed without ever being truly known. Do you know what that's like? To be wanted for what you provide, but not for who you are. To watch someone love the life you've built while completely missing the person who built it. It's a special kind of loneliness, the kind where you're never physically alone, but emotionally invisible. I had convinced myself that was enough, that being needed was the same as being loved, that providing and protecting and building was how you showed up for people. And maybe that's true in part, but it's not the whole truth. Because love without being seen isn't really love at all. It's a transaction disguised as connection. The women I'd known loved my ambition. They loved the vision. They loved what I represented, the future, the possibility, the grandness of it all. But they didn't love the man who woke up at 3 a.m. with anxiety clawing at his throat. They didn't love the part of me that doubted, that feared failure, that sometimes just wanted to stop running and rest. I learned to hide that part, to keep it locked away when no one could see it because vulnerability felt like weakness, and weakness felt like giving up, and I couldn't give up. Too many people depended on me. Too many dreams hinged on my ability to keep pushing forward. So I pushed and I succeeded, and I became lonelier with every achievement until her. When she looked at me that Tuesday, she didn't see the CEO or the innovator or the public figure. She saw me, the tired man trying to change the world while forgetting to take care of himself. The dreamer who'd achieved everything except peace. The builder who'd constructed empires, but couldn't figure out how to build a life that felt like home. I didn't know it yet, didn't understand what was happening. But something ancient inside me woke up, something that had been sleeping for years, maybe decades, the part of me that still believed in magic, in destiny, in the possibility that maybe, just maybe, I could be chosen for who I am and not what I do. We spoke for 7 minutes that day, 7 minutes that rewrote my understanding of connection. She asked me one question that no one had ever asked before. Are you okay? 3 simple words. Are you okay? Not how's the company or what's your next project or when are you going to Mars? Just are you okay? And I didn't know how to answer because nobody asks that. Nobody looks at someone who appears to have everything and wonders if they're drowning underneath the success. Nobody considers that maybe the man launching rockets is also just a man trying not to fall apart. I lied. I said I was fine, because that's what you say. That's what you're supposed to say. But she held my gaze a moment longer, and in that moment I knew she didn't believe me. She saw through the armor. She recognized a fellow warrior who'd been fighting too long without rest. Don't leave yet. I need you to hear this. That encounter should have ended there. Should have been one of those brief moments that fade into the background noise of life. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. About those 3 seconds when our eyes met. About the way she asked if I was okay and actually meant it. I found myself looking for her, hoping to run into her again. And when I did 3 days later, it felt like the universe was confirming something I didn't yet understand. That this wasn't random, that she mattered, that we were supposed to find each other. This time, we talked longer, and I learned her story. Not all of it. Stories like ours take years to fully unfold, but enough to understand. She had built a life too. Had loved and lost, had given everything to people who took without seeing. Had learned to be strong because vulnerability felt too dangerous. Had become invisible in the very places she should have been most visible. She was me. A different version, a different path, but the same core wound, the same loneliness, the same exhaustion for being needed but not known. And for the first time and longer than I could remember, I didn't feel alone. You're still here. Thank you. I know this is a lot. I know I'm asking you to sit with things that might touch places in you that hurt. But stay with me because what I'm about to tell you matters. Not just for my story, but for yours too. You see, I didn't realize it then, but meeting her wasn't just about finding love. It was about finding proof that being seen is possible. That somewhere in this world of billions of people, there exists someone who will look at you, really look at you and choose to stay not because of what you provide or achieve or represent, but because of who you are in the quiet moments, in the broken moments, in the moments when you're too tired to be impressive and all you can offer is honesty. She became my proof, my evidence that miracles still happen, that strangers can become everything, that late night conversations can heal years of loneliness, that being known is worth more than being successful. And slowly over weeks and months I let her in, not all at once. I'd built those walls too strong for that. But brick by brick, wall by wall, I showed to the parts of me I'd hidden, the doubt, the fear, the little boy who just wanted to be enough. The man had achieved everything except peace. And she didn't run. She didn't minimize or fix or tell me to be stronger. She just witnessed, held space, saw me, and decided I was worth staying for. That's when I understood. Love isn't about finding someone who fits into your life. It's about finding someone who sees your life for what it really is, the beauty and the brokenness, and chooses you anyway. She chose me, and in doing so, she taught me that I was always worthy of being chosen. Not for my accomplishments, not for my vision, just for being myself. Thank you for staying. I wasn't sure you would. You see, this is where it gets harder to tell, because what comes next requires me to show you things I've spent years hiding, things I've convinced myself don't matter anymore, things I buried under ambition and achievement, and the relentless forward motion that defines my life. But she asked me to be honest, and being honest means going back to the moments that shaped me, back to the wounds that taught me to build walls, back to the reasons why meeting her felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. I need you to understand something about men like me, men who build impossible things, men who everyone assumes have everything figured out. We learn very early that vulnerability is dangerous, that showing weakness invites abandonment, that the only way to keep people around is to be impressive, to be useful, to be the one who solves problems instead of creating them. I learned this when I was young, too young to understand what I was learning, but old enough for it to stick. My childhood wasn't what people imagine. There was brilliance there, yes, books and computers and dreams that felt too big for the world I lived in. But there was also loneliness, deep, aching loneliness, the kind that comes from seeing the world differently and being punished for it. From being the weird kid, the one who didn't fit, the one who spent lunch periods alone because social dynamics felt like equations I couldn't solve. I learned to retreat into my mind, into ideas and inventions and futures I could control, because the present, the messy, painful present of being a boy who didn't belong was unbearable. So I disappeared into possibility, into what could be instead of what was. And it worked, sort of. I found safety and intelligence in being the smartest person in the room, in knowing that even if people didn't like me, they needed me. They needed my ideas, my solutions, my vision. But needing isn't loving, and being valued isn't being seen. Do you understand that distinction? Have you lived it too? The difference between being appreciated for what you do and being cherished for who you are. I carried that confusion into every relationship I ever had. I thought if I could just achieve enough, build enough, prove enough, then someone would finally see me, finally choose me, finally decide I was worth staying for. But it doesn't work that way. Because when you build your worth on achievement, people fall in love with your accomplishments, not your soul. They fall in love with the life you provide, not the person providing it. And you end up more alone at the top than you ever were at the bottom. My first marriage taught me that. I was young, ambitious, working 20-hour days to build something that mattered. I thought devotion to the mission was devotion to us. I thought if I could just make it work, make the company succeed, make our future secure, then everything else would fall into place. But she needed more than a future. She needed presence. She needed the man, not the mission. And I didn't know how to be that man. I didn't know how to turn off the part of my brain that was always solving, always building, always 3 steps ahead of the present moment. So she left. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, emotionally. She left long before the paperwork made it official. And I convinced myself it was her fault, that she didn't understand what I was trying to build, that she couldn't see the bigger picture. But the truth I couldn't face then was that I had abandoned her first. I had chosen the future over the present, the mission over the marriage, the dream of the person standing right in front of me asking to be seen. Stay with me. This gets harder before it gets easier. There were others after her. Different faces, different stories, but the same pattern. I would meet someone and think, maybe this time, maybe this person will understand. Maybe this person will love the man behind the mission. And for a while, it would feel like they did. For a while, the excitement of new love would paper over the old wounds. But then the pattern would repeat. I would disappear into work, into the endless demands of companies and innovations and problems that needed solving, and they would feel neglected, unseen. Second T, oh, the mission. And they wouldn't be wrong because I had learned somewhere deep in my bones that the only thing I could truly control is my work. That people leave but missions endure. That investing in dreams was safer than investing in people. So I invested in dreams, and I became spectacularly successful and spectacularly lonely. There were nights, so many nights, when I would sit in my house surrounded by everything I'd built and feel absolutely nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, no sense of arrival, just this vast emptiness that success couldn't fill. And I would wonder, is this it? Is this what I've been working toward? A life where I've changed the world but can't figure out how to connect with a single person? Where I can land rockets but can't land a relationship? Where I understand orbital mechanics but can't understand why love keeps slipping through my fingers? I started to believe something was wrong with me, that I was fundamentally unlovable, that the traits that made me successful, the obsession, the intensity, the inability to turn off my brain, were the same traits that made me impossible to love. Maybe you felt this too. This sense that the very things that make you powerful in the world make you difficult in relationships, that your strength is also your curse, that the gifts you've been given come with invisible prices no one told you about. I became resigned to it, accepted it as the cost of the life I'd chosen. I told myself that extraordinary achievement requires extraordinary sacrifice, that you can't change the world and have a normal life, that men like me don't get the fairy tale, we get the mission. And I made peace with that. Or I thought I did until her. When she asked me if I was okay that first day, something cracked open inside me. Some sealed room I locked away years ago. And in the weeks that followed, as we kept finding reasons to see each other, to talk longer, to share more, that crack grew wider. She told me about her own history, her own wounds, and I recognized myself in her story. She had given everything to people who took without gratitude, had loved without being loved back, had learned to be strong because being vulnerable meant getting hurt, had convinced herself that maybe she was too much, too intense, too deep, too difficult, and I wanted to tell her what no one had ever told me. You weren't too much. You were exactly enough. The problem wasn't you. The problem was that you were giving your depth to people who only had capacity for shallow, but saying that to her meant accepting it for myself, meant believing that maybe I wasn't unlovable. Maybe I just hadn't met someone with the capacity to hold all of me, the brilliance and the brokenness, the vision and the vulnerability, the man who builds rockets and the boy who still feels like he doesn't belong. She had that capacity. I saw it in the way she listened, really listened, not waiting for her turn to speak or forming judgments or offering solutions, just witnessing, just making space, just letting me be messy and uncertain and scared without trying to fix it. Do you know how rare that is, to find someone who can hold space for your pain without trying to solve it? Who understands that sometimes you don't need answers. You just need to be seen in your struggle. She became my sanctuary, the one person I could be completely honest with, the one relationship where I didn't have to perform or impress or prove anything, where I could be tired and she wouldn't see it as weakness, where I could doubt and she wouldn't lose faith, where I could just be human. And slowly, terrifyingly, I started to fall in love, not the infatuation kind of love, not the excitement of something new kind of love, but the deep foundational kind of love that changes how you see yourself, the kind that makes you realize you've been living in black and white and someone just taught your eyes how to see color. But falling in love when you've been hurt before is terrifying, because you know what's on the other side of hope. You know that opening your heart means giving someone the power to break it. You know that choosing to trust again means risking everything you've carefully protected. There were nights I almost pulled away, almost convinced myself it was safer to stay alone, almost talked myself into believing that what we had was nice but not worth the risk, because risk meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant possibly repeating every painful pattern I'd lived through before. But then I would see her and she would look at me with those eyes that saw everything, all my fear, all my history, all my reasons for running. And she would choose to stay anyway, and I would remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite the fear. It's choosing love even when love has hurt you before. So I chose to stay, chose to let this unfold, chose to believe that maybe this time could be different, that maybe I had finally found someone who could love both the mission and the man, who understood that they weren't separate, that you can't love me without loving my drive, and you can't love my drive without loving the human exhaustion underneath it. She understood. She always understood. And that understanding became the foundation of everything that came next. There's more. I want to tell you so much more about what happened when I finally let her all the way in, about the moment everything changed, about what it feels like to be truly seen after years of invisibility. But I need to pause here, need to give you space to breathe, because I know this touches things in you too. Things you've maybe been avoiding, things that hurt to remember. You're still here. I feel that your presence, even through these words, even across whatever distance separates us. Thank you for not turning away. Thank you for staying when this gets uncomfortable. Because what comes next, what I need to tell you now, is about the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than building companies, harder than launching rockets, Harder than standing in front of rooms full of doubters and proving them wrong. The hardest thing I've ever done was letting her see me break. We had been seeing each other for months. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into late night conversations that stretched until sunrise. We talked about everything: childhood wounds, failed relationships, dreams we'd given up on, fears we'd never spoken aloud. She knew my history, I knew hers. We had created this bubble of intimacy that felt safe, sacred, separate from the chaos of the outside world. But intimacy has layers, and we'd only scratched the surface. There's a difference between telling someone about your pain and letting them witness it, between describing your wounds and allowing them to touch the raw places that haven't healed, between saying, "I've been hurt before," and actually letting yourself be vulnerable enough to be hurt again. I had told her everything, but I hadn't muttered in, not really, not to the deepest parts, not to the place where the little boy still lived, the one who believed he was fundamentally unlovable, the one who had learned to achieve his way to worthiness because he couldn't believe anyone would choose him just for being himself. She sensed it, of course she did. You can't hide that kind of wall from someone who's built the same walls. She could feel me keeping distance even in closeness, protecting myself even while pretending to be open, controlling the intimacy so it never went deep enough to destroy me. And one night she called me on it. We were sitting in my living room. It was late, the city lights spread out below us like a circuit board. All those lives happening simultaneously, all those people in their own private struggles. And she looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, not hurt, just knowing, sad, resigned. "You're not really here," she said quietly. "You're with me, but you're not here." Those words landed like a punch to the chest because she was right. I was there physically, but emotionally, I was still holding back, still protecting, still maintaining control so I couldn't be destroyed again. "I'm here," I lied. "I'm right here." She shook her head. "No, you're giving me the parts of you that are safe to give, the stories, the history, the carefully curated vulnerability, but you won't let me see you actually vulnerable. You won't let yourself need me." Need. That word hung in the air between us like an accusation because she'd identified exactly what I was avoiding. I'd spent my entire life making sure I didn't need anyone. Need meant dependence. Dependence meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant giving someone power over you. And power meant the ability to destroy you. I had learned this lesson too well, had internalized it so deeply that I didn't even realize I was doing it. I thought I was being open. I thought I was letting her in, but I was only showing her the wounds that had already healed, never the ones still bleeding. I don't know how I finally admitted, and that admission cost me everything because it meant acknowledging that despite all my intelligence, all my problem-solving abilities, all my capacity to figure out impossible things, I didn't know how to do this, didn't know how to truly surrender, didn't know how to let go of control long enough to fall. "Stay with me, please. This is where it matters most." She moved closer, not in a comforting way, but in a challenging way. In a way that said, "I'm not letting you hide anymore. Tell me what you're afraid of," he said, "right now." Not the intellectual answer, not the processed, figured out version. "Tell me what you're actually afraid of in this moment." And something broke. Some dam I'd built to hold back the flood. Because nobody had ever asked me that. Nobody had ever pushed past my defenses and demanded to see the real fear underneath. "I'm afraid you'll leave," I said, and my voice cracked. Actually cracked like I was 14 again, not a man in his 50s who'd built empires. "I'm afraid that when you see how much I need you, how deeply I want this, how terrified I am of losing you, you'll realize I'm too much, too intense, too broken, and you'll do what everyone else did. You'll decide it's not worth it." There it was, the truth I'd been running from, the wound underneath all the other wounds, the belief that my need would drive her away, that my humanity would disappoint her, that the real me, not the visionary or the CEO or the public figure, but the scared, lonely man underneath wasn't enough. I waited for her to pull back, to realize she'd made a mistake, to see that I was exactly as damaged as I feared I was. But she didn't pull back. She moved closer. "Listen to me," she said, and her voice was steady, certain, unshakable. "Your need doesn't scare me. Your intensity doesn't scare me. What scares me is watching. You pretend you don't need anyone when I can see how badly you're hurting. What scares me is loving someone who won't let himself be loved. Won't let himself be loved." God, that phrase cut through everything because she was right. I'd been so focused on protecting myself from rejection that I'd made it impossible for anyone to actually reach me. I had built walls so high that love couldn't get in, and then wondered why I felt so alone. Do you know that feeling? Have you done that too? built fortresses around your heart and then felt abandoned inside them, protected yourself so thoroughly that nobody could hurt you and nobody could love you either. I started crying, actually crying, tears running down my face in front of another person for the first time in years, maybe decades, and every instinct screamed at me to stop, to regain control, to be strong. Because strong people don't break. Strong people hold it together. Strong people don't let anyone see them shatter. But I was so tired of being strong. So tired of holding everything together. So tired of carrying weight alone because I convinced myself that asking for help was weakness. She held me. Just held me. Just held me. Didn't try to fix it or make it better or tell me it was okay. Just witnessed my breaking and stayed. Just let me be human. Just proved that she meant what she said, that my need didn't scare her. And something shifted. Some fundamental recalibration of what I thought love meant. Because I'd always believed love was about being impressive enough, strong enough, successful enough that someone would choose you despite your flaws. But this was different. This was being chosen because of your humanity, not despite it. This was someone seeing you at your most broken and deciding that's exactly when you need them most. We sat there for hours, me breaking open her holding space, and slowly, agonizingly, I started to let go. Started to trust that maybe I could need someone without it destroying me, that maybe vulnerability wasn't weakness, that maybe surrender wasn't losing. I told her things I'd never told anyone, about the nights I stood in the shower and cried because I felt so overwhelmed, about the mornings I didn't want to get out of bed because the weight of expectations felt unbearable, about the constant fear that I'm one failure away from proving all the doubters right, about how lonely it is to be surrounded by thousands of people who all want something from you but nobody who just wants you. And she listened, witnessed, validated, never minimized, never told me I should be grateful for what I have or that other people have it worse. Just acknowledged that my pain was real, even if it looked different from other people's pain, that success doesn't inoculate you against suffering, that you can have everything and still feel empty. Don't leave yet. There's something else I need you to understand. That night changed everything, 'cause I learned something I'd spent my whole life not knowing. Being seen in your brokenness doesn't destroy you, it heals you. Being vulnerable doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. And real connection, the kind that touches your actual humanity, not your curated image, is worth every risk. She became my safe place, the one person I could fall apart with and know I'd be okay. The one relationship where I didn't have to perform, where I could be tired and scared and uncertain and still be loved, where my humanity wasn't a liability, it was the point. And slowly I started to heal, not because she fixed me, not because she made my problems disappear, but because she witnessed them, because she held space for my pain without trying to take it away, because she loved me at my worst and proved to I was still worthy. This is what I want you to understand, what I need you to hear. Because maybe you've built the same walls. Maybe you've learned to be strong because being vulnerable felt too dangerous. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you're too much, too intense, too broken for anyone to truly love. But you're not. You never were. You were just giving your depth to people who only had capacity for shallow. You were just offering your full self to people who only wanted parts of you. You were just being honest about your needs with people who were terrified of their own. The right person, the person who's done their own work, who's faced their own wounds, who's learned that vulnerability is strength, won't be scared of your depth. They'll be drawn to it. They'll recognize it. They'll match it. She matched me. And in doing so, she taught me that everything I'd been afraid of showing was exactly what was worth showing. That my intensity wasn't too much. It was the exact right amount for someone who could hold it. That my need wasn't shameful. It was human. That my wounds didn't make me unlovable. They made me real. I want to tell you what happened next. How that surrender opened doors I didn't know existed. How being truly seen changed not just my relationship, but my entire life. How learning to receive love was harder and more important than learning to give it. I'm grateful you're still with me. I know this journey isn't easy. I know I'm asking you to wade through pain, mine, and maybe your own. But stay. Please stay. Because what I'm about to tell you is where everything transforms. Where the breaking becomes breakthrough. Where all that surrender finally leads somewhere worth going. After that night, the night I let her see me shatter, something fundamental shifted. Not immediately, not like flipping a switch, but gradually, like dawn breaking after the longest night. I started to understand something I'd been getting wrong my entire life. I thought love was something you earned, something you achieved through being impressive enough, successful enough, perfect enough. I thought if I could just solve enough problems, build enough companies, prove enough value, then someone would finally decide I was worth keeping. But that's not love. That's transaction. That's conditional acceptance based on performance. And conditional acceptance always comes with an expiration date. The moment you stop performing, the moment you show weakness, the moment you need instead of provide it evaporates. Real love doesn't work like that. Real love sees you at your worst and chooses you anyway, not despite your brokenness, but including it. Not waiting for you to fix yourself, but loving you through the mess of becoming. She taught me that. Not with words, though. She said plenty, but with presence.